Hi again then guys, and welcome to what is the first and unfortunately probably the last as well bike review from DRIVECLUB. In particular, obviously the bike expansion was something that was available before $12.99 here in the UK, and I was hoping to actually download it before the servers shut down in I believe March of next year to actually review all of those bikes to get that done, because there are relatively few bike games for me to actually get those bike reviews up on the channel, and I like to produce motorcycle content. There just aren't a huge amount of great games featuring it, at least not that I've already covered. Now, as far as this bike, you don't actually need the additional feature of bikes to be able to try it out. So if you've got DRIVECLUB, you can go into the game, click on bikes, and you can still ride this one. And as well as being a cool feature, it of course makes sense, because people can test it out, and if they like it, they can download the rest of them. And unfortunately, I can't. I've tried on the desktop, I've tried on the PlayStation Store in the game. Not only can I not download the bike pack, even though it's still listed, I cannot download any of the other content either. Now, most of the car packs I already had. Some of them I've lost because of the club connections, like the Zonda R. Some of them I do still have though, like the Jaguar CX-75 and various others too, so it's kind of weird. It seems patchy in terms of what they have and haven't shut down already. The clubs are still up, the time trials are still up. It's kind of weird, and of course in March it'll probably all go, or whatever when it comes to that, in a similar way to Test Drive and Limited. As far as this bike though, it's a kind of bike where I certainly don't love it as much as its predecessors. I'm actually a big Aprilia fan, their sport bikes in particular, everything from the RS50 all the way up to the Mill. But this one though, it doesn't really do it for me. And it's not so much that I don't like the look or style or proportions or even the performance of more modern bikes. In fact, one of my favourite bikes, period, is in this game, or at least a version of it, and that is the KTM RC8. That's a much newer bike. It's one of the most futuristic bikes ever designed, as far as I'm concerned, and I love it. So it's not that I just don't like this generation, it's this specific Aprilia. It's almost too understated for me, because the 2006 RSV, to me, is a stunning bike. It looks like Darth Vader as a motorcycle. I first saw it in Midnight Club, fell in love with it immediately. Awesome bike, that deep sound. Even the late 90s one looks gorgeous with the curves, very similar to the RS50, to the RS250, and the RS125 in between. Great bikes, iconic Aprilias, and those two in particular were very much so what made me love Aprilia's bikes, more than anything else in their range in fact. This one, although certainly not being slow, it could destroy the two previous Mills easily. Of course, that's the point. But it's just those visuals, the proportions to me, it's almost strangely narrow looking for a superbike, which to me makes it kind of look like a smaller bike than it actually is. And the funny thing about that is, I actually fall on both sides of the fence when it comes to the proportions of this bike, because it's not a lightweight. The vast majority of newer bikes tend to be getting close, sometimes even over the 200 kilo range, which they were not in the mid-2000s. They were more like 170, 180, with rarely a bike that was up around 200, especially a top-tier machine, whereas now stuff like Panigales, Desmos, they're all up around 200 kilos. And although this thing isn't the heaviest of them all, it's no flyweight either. Now, it is powerful, and of course it's fast. You can easily get it up around 170 because, again, Aprilia doesn't tend to be outright speed machines. They're more of a mix of handling and straight-line performance, kind of like MotoGP for the street, if you will, which I like. I like that approach of having the best of both worlds. But I find it interesting that the proportions and the style and how narrow the bike looks and feels in the game gives it both the advantage and the disadvantage for me. The main disadvantage is just personal preference. I don't like the look of it. I think it's too narrow, too understated, and just doesn't look as badass as the previous ones or as pretty as the late 90s one. However, it makes it very nimble, because through corners it does not feel like a liter bike. It doesn't feel as heavy as it is, doesn't feel as powerful as it is even, but in a good way. It's not like one of those bikes where it's constantly trying to run away from you. It feels very much under control. And of course, having never experienced any of the other bikes in the game, I can't speak to how it compares to those, unfortunately, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if this Aprilia is actually on the upper end of the spectrum when it comes to cornering, because that tends to be what Aprilias are pretty good at, being those track bikes for the street, in effect. This one certainly carries on that legacy. It's more just the styling that lets me down a little bit personally. As far as its ability in the game, well, if, like me, you haven't downloaded the bike pack, it doesn't have a huge amount of use. You can grow your Aprilia affinity, I guess, by riding it a lot and doing tricks with it, and that's cool if you love the bike, but you can't do that much with it beyond that. I think you can probably race it against the AI, but it's not like you can compare it to other bikes yourself, or at least those in our position can't. So as I said, if there is a way that you can get those bikes and still get around those issues, by all means tell me about it below, but I suspect there isn't. For now though, that's it for my thoughts on the RSV4 RF, and for now, as always, thanks for watching.